Welcome to another Sunday of thinking and talking and sharing about the stories from Mark's Gospel about Jesus, and also to World Communion Sunday. So this Sunday in my sermon, I'm going to try to combine all of the stories that I've been assigned to preach from the 7th chapter of Mark. This chapter, and kind of try to tie it together with what it means to be having communion with a lot of churches in the world that are having communion on this Sunday. So these two stories that we have to think about this Sunday are both about healing of some kind. They're both in Gentile territory, which is new. Jesus is leaving the heat of the Jewish territory. They're kind of catching on that he's blaspheming God in their opinion, and that he's causing trouble, and that they think their religious duty might be to kill him. And so he's needing to get away from all of that. He goes to Gentile territory to try to hide from that. So the first story is about going and trying to hide in this house, and the people find him anyway. His reputation has preceded him, and they find him, and especially this one woman who wants him to heal her daughter of demon possession. And Jesus makes this comment that, I'm here for the Jewish people, not other people, and maybe as a setup, maybe you can talk about that in your class. Why would he say something like that? That doesn't sound like Jesus just tells somebody that he can't heal them because they're not Jewish. But maybe that's just our perspective now, because we know Jesus came for the whole world and not just the Jewish people. But this is where it begins, where he starts going out of the Jewish territory to agree to be a healer for other people, the Gentile world. Then the next story is about his healing of a deaf man. And again, it's in Gentile territory. And again, it's somebody that didn't necessarily have faith, just like the girl didn't even come to him that had the demon, but her mother came for her. In this story of the deaf man, his friends bring him to Jesus. It doesn't say anything about him thinking that Jesus can heal him, but Jesus does, on the faith of his friends. So one of the issues you might want to talk about in Sunday school is, how much can our own faith be an instrument of healing to other people? What kind of healers are we called to be, regardless of the people that we would like healing for, and what their faith is? Another aspect that you might want to land on for the whole class, or just touch on, is the sentence right in between those two stories, which is, Jesus left Tyre and went up to Sidon before going back to the Sea of Galilee and the region of the 10 towns. That one sentence is the same as 6 to 8 months of Jesus' life. Going from Tyre to Sidon to the Decapolis is like a 6 to 8 month journey on foot, which is what he was doing with his disciples. It's out of the way. It's like going from here to New York City to Atlanta. So obviously he wanted time with his disciples, to just be with them, to teach them, to get them ready for his ending that was coming up that only he knew about. Who knows what he talked about? That's the only verse we have about it. But it's also a huge part of his ministry. His public ministry was 3 years. So to take 6 to 8 months to be alone with his disciples, to rest and to relax and to be on kind of a retreat, was a huge part of his life, his ministry, and a huge part of what he's telling us to do. So one of the questions that you might want to explore is that how important is that to us today, and how do we do that? How do we rest with Jesus? How do we take that time to learn what Jesus might want to teach us and be with each other, like the disciples were together in their group? There's another thing that I am not going to have time to touch on and develop in this sermon, but something I've wondered out loud to myself is, it seems like a lot of times in the scriptures, Jesus meets people at the point of their crisis, or at least that's when people know that they're being met, know that they need God, know that they need Jesus' presence and healing. And you might want to just talk about, is that true for you too? Does Jesus meet you at the point of your crisis, or do you respond to Jesus more when you're in crisis yourself? And what does that say to us about how we can be healers to other people in our family, in our workplaces, and how ready are we to help meet those crises as opposed to running away from them because it's an uncomfortable place to be? And so if you want to develop that with your class, you could do that too. So have fun with all kinds of aspects of these stories in the scripture this week.